This is Matthew.
All right, so before we get into this week's episode, we do want to cover a quick bit of news that dropped from last week. It literally dropped. So last week, by the way, we did our first nerd news last week, which is our like once in a blue moon, once a month. We'll see how things go. Kind of all encompassing what's going on in the world of nerddom at large, outside of just Batman and DC. And it was also our very first true all video episode, short of the live episode we did recently. But thank you everybody who checked out the first video. Appreciate it. Appreciate up to just shy of 10 subscribers on YouTube. So we're getting there after one video. So that's cool. But we recorded that like hours before it dropped. Yeah. And then an hour after the episode dropped, a piece of casting news dropped, and I texted Matt and I literally just said, God damn it, James Gunn, because you son of a bitch. He had to wait. I think he waits until our show goes up.
Yeah.
I think he likes trolling our show and he waits until our episodes go up and then he posts news. It has been confirmed that Peacemaker season 2, which has been in production now for a month and a half, 2 months, something like that, I think.
I mean, at least a month, maybe.
Give or take. Yeah, at least a month. Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr., who he is voicing in Creature Commandos, the animated series, also made by James Gunn, will be appearing in live action in Peacemaker season 2, which James Gunn confirmed on Threads and Instagram, including a caption that suggests, Rick Flag Sr.'s got a score to settle with Peacemaker, which calls a lot of things into question, man.
I mean, if we go down that rabbit hole, it does.
Because we assumed that given, Frank Grillo is not that much older than I'm blanking on the guy. Joel Kinnaman, thank you, who played Rick Flag. I think they're roughly the same age.
I don't think so. Like, Frank Grillo is actually a lot older than you might think.
Right, but he's not old enough to be Joel Kinnaman's father. Unless he was an high school baby, maybe.
Let's see. Oh no, you're right. Wow, I didn't realize Joel Kinnaman was that old.
Yeah.
Joel Kinnaman's 44, Frank Grillo is 58.
Yeah, no, absolutely not. There's no way. So I'm assuming we're aging up Frank Grillo. I
would say so, because even in the promo for the cartoon, Rick Flag Sr. has white hair.
He looks older.
Yeah.
And so unless we're dealing with, again, we know nothing about Creature Commandos because we still haven't seen a trailer. Correct. We're about to go into trailer. We were on trailer watch for a while with the Penguin. I think we're about to go into trailer. I think at this point we're in trailer watch for Creature Commandos or that and Batman the Cape Crusader. But so at this point, unless we're dealing with some time travel stuff, we got to be aging up Frank Grillo then.
I would assume so.
I don't know. I don't know what else to add to this other than just utter confusion and really like my curiosity for what the fuck the DCU is going to look like here has never been higher.
Well, my thing right now is this. This is the first guy who has voiced a character who is now going to appear in live action in this new Gunverse thing. So now at least we have
it depends on what. Well, actually, I think because Amanda Waller is going to appear in Creature Commandos, so I think she'll be the first. But
correct, but that cartoon hasn't come out.
But right. But this will. So eventually, when Peacemaker comes out, he'll be the second to do. He'll be the first one to go from animation to live action,
and the first one that, as Gunn has announced, this is my thing.
Yeah,
this is my new cast of people.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming
outside of Amanda Waller, who was kind of obvious, this is the first one. This is the first one. Like this is the proof in the pudding.
Well, and this is also what you and I discussed one time is like, you don't cast Nathan Fillion as Green Lantern in a movie that's coming out in a year and a half, 2 years, if he ain't appearing somewhere else. So at this point, I think.
I don't know.
Well, I'm just saying, like, all bets are off.
Suicide Squad dies in the first 10 minutes.
Well, no, what I mean is like now I'm betting Nathan Fillion as Guy Gardner is in Creature Commandos.
Oh, I was thinking more he might be in Lanterns, because we know
Well,
Lanterns is coming.
that's a
And
given.
and I also feel like we haven't had a lot of hard evidence, but there have been lot, a lot of rumors about, like, Lanterns has been in production and we don't even know it. Like,
It's
that it's been
possible.
really,
Yeah.
so we haven't talked about any of it because there's nothing to talk about other than just the rumblings are strong.
Yeah.
So if they're already casting a Green Lantern, it does make you kind of wonder, like, is the Lantern show in production and we just were
Well,
so distracted by Superman?
and again, like you don't to me, you don't cast Guy Gardner
Mhm.
for a movie from a year and a half from now, a year and a half ahead of time,
Yeah.
if he's not somewhere else.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
And
saying. Like, I'm now
oh, yeah,
wondering, he's probably in, like I said, Creature Commandos.
yeah.
These guys are, so it's
Well,
all,
especially also Nathan Fillion's no stranger to voicing a Green Lantern animated. He's done it plenty. Uh, and it also then makes you wonder, are any other Creature Commandos gonna show up in Peacemaker too?
and
Or season 2 rather?
what other characters that we've got these, because there's like 5 or 6 heroes that are going to be appearing in Superman Legacy. Are
Yeah.
they also going to be dropping in on some of the
I
stuff? Peacemaker or
I think I think what we're seeing more and more, and I also think that Peacemaker season 1 is great evidence of this as well. With James Gunn's DCU, we're launching into a DCU that's existed for a while.
yes,
We're not doing we are there's no time for origin stories. We've
yeah,
had enough of DC's origin stories because DC has restarted themselves so many times. We've had so many DC origin stories.
yeah,
And so I think James Gunn knows as well as we do. We don't need we it's the same problem we had with Crisis on Infinite Earths animated stuff. We don't really need these origins. We
yeah,
know these characters. We already know the story. That's why we're here to watch the movie. You don't need to preface any of this. We get it. You just got to show us who's here and we'll be like, "Oh, hey, it's that person."
yeah,
If they're
exactly.
here. So I think this is just further proving with James Gunn's DCU. And again, like when you think about how many meta references to the rest of the DC universe at large are made, I mean, we got a Batmite reference in Peacemaker season 1.
Yeah.
Incredible. Could not believe that happened. Batmite is canon now. um, so it just kind of has me going, yeah, we're going into a DCU that is oh so populated. Odds are, if we're seeing Guy Gardner in Superman, then he's not the first Green Lantern that this DC universe has seen. And odds
Yeah.
are, if Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr. is showing up in Peacemaker season 2, then unless we're fucking with some serious time travel shit, which is not out of the realm of possibility, we're getting a very aged up Frank Grillo
Yeah.
for Rick Flag Sr.
Which I'm looking forward to. It'll be interesting.
I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait to see the first real trailer for Creature Commandos animated series with Frank Grillo, which I think is a great way to transition into us talking about the history of the Batman in the animated series.
Yes.
Not just the one. That was, you like how I did that? See how I made that happen? See how I made that work?
Golf clap. Golf clap.
Appreciate that as I hydrate. 64 ounces a day, baby. Look at this thing. Look at this gargantuan thing. I'm actually a little ahead of schedule. So,
It looks like it. You got there.
so
You're
I'm getting
doing
there.
it.
It's really not as 64 ounces is not as much water as you think. Like
No.
one of those 2-hour gaps is like 3 sips of water. It's really not that much water.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we are doing today a just kind of a the history of Batman and animation when it comes to television. We've talked about the animated films ad nauseum.
Yes.
And when it comes to animated series, I think we've talked about the Bruce Timm series from the 90s, the early 2000s kind of redesign and then eventually the Batman in 2003.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm going to get there eventually. As well as Batman Brave and the Bold. There are some other ones that we haven't talked about as much, or when we have, it's been kind of skimming over them because we may or may not like them. So this is not going to be a ranking. This is just we're just going to go through them in chronological order, going back only so far, up to the most recent one. And the most recent one might shock you just how recent it actually is, in quotation
Mhm.
marks.
Mhm.
So let's start with one that the more I think about this one, the more I really just love it. And I think it's from a nostalgia standpoint. But it's the Adventures of Batman, which ran from 1968 to 1969. It starred Casey Kasem as Dick Grayson and Olan Sewell as Batman, as well as one of my weirdly favorite portrayals of the Joker, Larry Storch. Um, do you have any attachment to this version of Batman at all, Matthew?
I mean, this is the one that I think I originally watched, and this is the one that when I was a kid, now this is taking it way back because I grew
Yeah,
up in the 70s, is that nowadays they used to have like you'd buy the book and there was an album, like a little
yeah.
small album, and you could play the album and the album was reading the book, but it was the voice actors from the show.
Yeah.
So that there
Yeah,
was one.
I had those on cassette and CD well into the 2000s.
Yeah,
They were a great way to get your kids to shut up in the car. My mom and dad learned that.
they could do that with albums, but that I'm
Well,
aware of.
that's fair. Well, look, any chance my parents had to get us to look, they had 5 kids and 3 of us were within 2 years of each other. They needed us all to shut the hell up in the car.
Yeah, but so that was what I remember is that name. Casey Kasem as Robin
Yeah.
is one of those things that like that is Robin in my head for the longest time.
Casey Kasem will always be the voice of Robin to me.
Yeah,
Like I hear his voice. You when you hear Casey Kasem's voice, you might think of a plethora of different things. For me, it will always be Robin.
yeah. So it, and I think these are the same guys who did the voices in the Super Friends show as well.
Yeah,
Mm,
and also in the many crossovers with Scooby Doo.
yes. So
Yeah.
it was cool to like like
Well,
remember
because
that.
they also because the Super Friends characters show up, like Superman. Both Superman makes appearances in this. Both Bud Collyer and Bob Hastings voice him. You know, Luther shows up in this. Jimmy Olsen's in this. Batgirl shows up in this. I mean, like this is very much yeah. This is a show that this was kind of like one of the first ideas of a cinematic universe was you just put out all these cartoon shows with superheroes and just had all the same voice cast and it just you just didn't really think about it.
Well,
It wasn't a big deal back then, but it was kind of the first seedlings, as it were, in the evolutionary chain of what we know today of being like a cinematic streaming comic book universe.
well, and I think too is pre mid '80s. There was no let's sell this character off to somebody else to do something.
Oh,
So if you had a Marvel show, a Marvel cartoon, anybody and everybody could show up and would be there. Same
yeah,
with DC. Like everybody, and even though DC hasn't quite done as much of that kind of thing as Marvel, but like, yeah, if you had a Batman show at any given time, anybody showing up.
yeah. A lot of times it just comes down to distribution.
Yeah.
You know, is what yeah. For as long as Warner Brothers has owned DC, Warner Brothers has put out anything DC related, but they've never shied away from letting someone else front the bill to distribute the thing. Case in point with Batman Cape Crusader, that's going to Amazon Prime. So,
Yeah.
um,
But yeah, it's just one of those like, yeah, this is the Batman of my childhood.
this was I remember being, and we've talked. I think I've talked about this show once before. I think probably in the early like get to know you episodes we did. I think I talked about this. So when I was a kid, my mom and I would go to this little grocery store corner department store thing called Mark's with a C, and they had this little tiny. It was barely a room. It was more like a closet of video rentals, and one of them they had in the kids section was this little VHS tape, and it had like 90 minutes of these 60s superhero cartoons with Batman and Superman and
Yeah.
Aquaman and Wonder Woman and I would rent it every time my mom would take me there. If
Yeah.
she'd let me would she would always say you can rent 2 movies. We rent 3 movies, one for her and then, you know, one for us to watch and then one that was just for me so that I would go sit in the other room and leave mom alone for a little bit. I was a mama's boy and it was always this or like one of the other like they had one that was like the multiple superheroes and one that was like the just Batman one. So it was always one of those. I watched these to death. I
Yeah.
have them on Blu-ray actually. They're still in a box right now from me moving, but I bought them on a Blu-ray like right before they had the whole thing. and for like $10 on Amazon. And I was like, yes, of course I want that. Amazon's recommended this based on your shopping. Well, Amazon got it right for once. Okay.
Yeah. I was just looking for boots for my kid. I do not recommend me to get flower boots.
Yeah, that's a little weird. But
enough about my son.
but enough. Yeah, if you want, if you really enjoy just the campiest of campy, like true kids comic book adaptation of just the adventures of Batman and Robin taking out the Joker with his pirate themed henchmen, like this
Mhm.
is for you. If you want something that's just dumb and comic booky, you can watch with your kids. I mean, it's good stuff. I get a lot of nostalgic enjoyment out of watching these old episodes. I really do.
Yeah.
Um,
It's cool. I love it.
well, the next one to come out, that show and the Super Friends and the other superhero shows, they all only had like a year's worth of episodes, but they ran on syndication
Yes.
forever. I watched these on repeats growing up. Every day at like lunchtime, they were on Boomerang or something like that. But then the next actual like new show doesn't come out till almost 10 years later, in 1977, which is the New Adventures of Batman, and that's the one with Adam West and Burt Ward, and that's the one where you get like Batmite and things like that, who at the time was this little purple looking, he looked like the Noid, honestly.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
looked like the Noid with a cape.
Yeah.
So that's where you get into basically Adam West and Burt Ward doing some things they never had the budget for their Batman and Robin to do live action.
Yeah. See, this is the one that like I don't know if I ever saw this.
I don't think I did either. The more I've looked through screenshots of this, and like I didn't find any full episodes on YouTube, but I found some clips, and the more and more I watched, the more I was like, I don't think I ever actually saw this show.
Do you have any screenshots that you can show or no?
Let me pull it up on the screen right here and I'll show it to you. I have no recollection of this show whatsoever. If you've seen us on YouTube, you can see this on screen. If you're listening to this, go find it on YouTube. Sorry.
Yeah.
Sorry. But yeah, I'm on the IMDb page for this show. The New Adventures of Batman, 1977,
Is there
1978.
photos? Scroll for a second.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
sorry.
photos down here. I was just leaving it up for the people. So, this one doesn't say who this is. I'm assuming that's like, I don't know. I don't know who that
Hugo
could be.
Strange? No.
I don't know. This is just some weird, that one. There's Batmite there in the Batcave. There's more Batmite.
Maybe I have seen it because I recognize that Batmite.
I think that's supposed to be Superman. I'm assuming.
No, I think that's Bruce Wayne.
No, that's the Chameleon, maybe. I don't know. Don't know who that's supposed to be. More ads.
Yeah.
I have no recollection of this whatsoever.
No,
I don't think I ever saw this show.
The Batmite looks familiar, so I may have watched it, but I would have been very young at the time, so I don't recall.
Honestly, I feel like, but when you look at like this look of the Joker, it's the same look as the other show. Well, honestly, the designs of everything are the same.
Yeah,
it seems like just the voice cast changed. So I almost wonder if I saw this, and because I was a child,
yeah,
I just conflated the two. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's the thing is like Batman stays in that blue and gray outfit until the mid 80s.
Yeah.
So there was not back then, like you didn't like change the costume of a character for a new show. You just did the costume. So it's hard to say like, hey, that's Batman and Robin from all 8 different cartoon series that they were in during that time frame.
They just changed who the voice actors were. Yeah, that's the logo is the only thing that looks even remotely familiar. But again, you also have to remember, like, there's like, this is the 70s. There's like 2 animation studios, so that they've already got designs for a character. They're not going to come up with new ones.
Yeah,
animation takes forever in the 70s. They're gonna cut corners where they can. Because it's literally the exact, because I honest to God love this design of the Batmobile. I don't know why. I don't know why, but the sexy kind of like Cadillac look. I think for the same reason I love the 60s Batmobile. It's just sexy, you
It
know?
looks like a Chevy Impala from
Yeah.
Supernatural, but with the bat fin on it.
Oh, what did my roommate have in college? Galant. It reminds me of a
Mm,
Galant.
okay.
Mitsubishi, not Mitsubishi Galant.
Anyway, so
Anyway,
yes.
so yeah, but that's the show. So I think because the animation is literally it's because it's the same animation studio. It's Hanna-Barbera.
Yeah,
I think it's Hanna-Barbera. I would be shocked if it wasn't.
I'm sure it is.
But anyway, so I think probably my 5-year-old brain just conflated the two because they were on. I'm watching them 20 years later, not even 20 years later on repeats. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Um.
sure. I'm sure.
All right. So that's now we get to the one I think everybody like when you talk about Batman the animated series. I think we're talking the next one to come out is 20 years later, almost 20 years later, like 15. Bruce Timm's Batman the Animated Series, the one we all think of with the red sky and the lightning bolt with again behind the silhouette, with Mark Hamill as the Joker, Kevin Conroy as Batman, and so on and so forth. This is the series that introduces Harley Quinn. This is the series that reintroduces Mr. Freeze into what is now my favorite Batman Rogue, like period, hands down. Fight me. I mean this is the animated series that changes the public perception of Batman. I think.
Yeah.
I don't know
No.
what to say about the show we haven't already said.
Oh, I'll say it. No.
Go ahead.
No,
Oh,
I think
please. Yeah.
well, because I think what happens is because Super Friends, like I think people don't like I think people think Super Friends is a 70s cartoon. That thing runs till like the mid to late 80s. It runs for a while.
It was dude. Again, all those shows were running on syndicated repeats well into the 2000s.
Well, no, but it
They
was still
were
yeah.
they were my childhood. That like as much as Bruce Timm's Man Animated Series because it was the new one. All I had was that and the old 60s,
Yeah.
70s one. So I lived and breathed those. So whenever I
Yeah.
see references to those that are Easter eggs that go over most people's heads, I'm like you. I'm like, no, I get that. I'm one of 5 people here that get that. But
Well, yeah, because Super Friends runs to 85, and then Batman
yeah,
the Animated Series, it starts at what, 91, 90?
92.
So there's only 7 years really difference. But I think what happens, there's two things that happen. One is in the mid 80s, Frank Miller comes in and the landscape of comics change drastically. They stop being
Wildly.
kids' books and things take more serious. And then this movie called Batman comes out in 1989 and does gangbusters. So I think what you have is let's attempt to do a serious Batman cartoon. Let's not have the camp. Let's
Yeah.
take this seriously because you probably don't remember this, but like Batman came out like it was like a Saturday. No, it's like a Sunday evening. It came out in the
It,
night
wa-
at
it
night.
was an evening show.
It was an adult.
My mom had to teach me how to program the VCR because my at the time my mom and I were still living with my grandma, and so we were in one room. We had a TV and a VCR in there, and so my mom taught me how to program the VCR at like 4 years old,
Yeah,
so that I could tape it because it came on at like 8 or 8:30,
yeah,
and so that way it would tape during the night, and then I could watch it the next morning while I was eating cereal before school.
yeah. Because they really do. They pitched it as this is a young adult cartoon. It was not a Saturday morning thing. It wasn't a syndicated thing, and it's not until I mean, we've talked about this before. Robin comes in. They decide to put Robin all over the place. It becomes an afternoon syndicated thing. Blah, 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 blah.
Well,
Point is, it's a
toys,
fantastic show.
toys, 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 toys,
Toys
toys.
as well. Toys as
Toys.
well.
So God knows I had most of them. This also like I'll tell you something I don't think we ever talked about with this before, which is this is also a show that like they knew so well what they had with creating the motifs around each villain. Like each villain has its own theme song.
Yeah.
Each villain has, each villain has repeated appearances. There's a mistake that comes up in a later show that we'll talk about where they kind of limit how many appearances each villain gets. But they, to the point where, do you remember when they put out the VHS collections for this show that were just centered around the villains?
Yes.
You could go get a VHS collection of just the Two-Face episodes, and all the box art was all centered around Two-Face. Like, they fucking knew what they had, and they twisted and wrang that sponge. They were like, no, we remember they came at this thing with 60 plus episodes ready to go so they could go for immediate syndication. They were like, get us everywhere.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah, and it's like, it's a fantastic show. Later on, some of the animation doesn't hold up, but I think that happens with any cartoon, especially if it's syndicated.
Look
the
at
stories are there.
somebody who just recently saw the Phantom Menace on the big screen. I can tell you, look, not all the technology ages. I just rewatched 2011's Rise of the Planet of the Apes, the first one, the first Matt Reeves one. Still a great movie. Not all that CGI holds up. Look, animation ages, folks. As technology gets better and our eyes adjust, our eyes stay adjusted, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it's, yeah, I mean, we've talked about it before. It's fantastic. And then
Can have and will talk about this show for hours.
Yeah. Now, you and I keep going back and forth on this, but let's go ahead and go into it. So when the show came out, it had 3 seasons, and then the 4th season was a redesign.
Yes.
And depending on where you go, it's either the 4th season or it's its own show called what?
The New Batman Adventures. Which was then later looped in with the New Adventures of Batman and Superman or whatever that. Correct. Even though they pitched it as a Batman Superman crossover, but the crossover didn't happen for like 2 seasons.
Well, because they even did there was for a while, it was called The Adventures of Batman and Robin when it became an afternoon thing, and Robin was in every episode in the 2nd season.
Yeah, for some reason that always gets looped in as part of the same show, but this one's straight up credited as a different show.
Sometimes, yes, that's what I'm saying.
On IMDb, it is credited as as a sequel series, like it's same universe but different show. It's so it depends. You can look at it as a sequel. Either way, it's the same voice cast, same universe, but it's a complete artistic redesign. There's a time jump of, I believe, 5 years.
I think it's 5 years, because the flip side, well, they don't ever say years. The thing is that they cancel Batman and do Superman.
Yeah.
And then when Superman is a
great success,
they're like, no, you need to do one more season of Batman.
Yeah.
And that's when Bruce Timm's like, well, if we're going to do it, I want to reboot it, because the big thing, I don't know if we've talked about this before, is that it was originally on Kids WB.
Yeah.
And then, no, I'm sorry, not Kids.
On Fox
Kids. And then when it becomes Kids WB, they can add real guns, more violence. Yeah. So if you watch like the first 3 seasons,
that's when you started getting into. That's when a lot of the networks started drawing hard lines and whose content they were going to carry and whose they were.
And you start getting these UHF stations that are now bigger stations and they can do more.
Yeah.
So
this is like the birth of the CW, basically.
Yeah. So there is a huge difference in tone, level of violence, weapons kind of stuff between the first 3 seasons and this show.
Yeah, that's why there's 2 different cuts of, and again, we'll talk about this later, but that's why there's 2 different cuts of Return of the Joker.
Yeah.
There's a director's cut of that movie that is dark.
Yeah. There's a director's cut that's for DVD, and then there's a syndicated film version. But all that to say,
the one that aired on Kids WB.
Yeah, all that to say, I have a DVD set of the 4th season of Batman the Animated Series. That is this.
I think it depends on the date. I think it depends on what year it is at any given time. Because I feel like whenever you got that collection, it was probably classified one way, and then there was maybe some contract or distribution nonsense later on, and then it got reclassified as a separate show. I don't know. Because I know there was some stuff behind the scenes with like Paul Dini and everybody, and then there was also the thing in the 2010s with like the license with the crediting of Alan Grant and Bob Kane and Bill Finger and everybody. So so it's sometimes stuff gets reclassified for a lot of reasons that maybe we're not privy to. So there's also that. But I will say, I mean, this is the show that like I didn't know who Nightwing was before this show.
Yeah.
Because of just the age I was, is all it came down to.
Yeah.
Comics weren't at comics by the time I'm old enough to be interested have taken that more adult turn. So it's harder for me to get comics because, my mother's like, well, I'm not letting my 5-year-old have this Green Lantern comic when there's a lady on the beach who might as well be naked. My child's 5. At the time, I was also in Catholic school. My mother was not about to let that in the house. Like, that's not going to happen. The first time I got a Wizards of the Coast magazine that had all kinds of stuff from like Witchblade in it, my mother was mortified because I was like 7. So anyway, that is to say, like, so this is the show that introduces me to Nightwing, which then I start collecting Nightwing comics like a mofo, because Nightwing at that point was pretty safe to collect as far as my mother was concerned. Like, it was a little dark, but like,
well, see, I was
to
trying
to her it was just, oh, it's just grown up Robin. Well, okay.
See, I was trying to figure out, when does that series come out?
97.
The comic book?
Oh, the comic book of
Nightwing.
Oh, I don't remember. I don't know.
So,
I don't remember what year. I don't remember.
Okay, it's 1995. So yeah. Okay. So his costume has just changed. So they change it even more for this show.
So I get into Nightwing at the time that he gets the black and blue redesign. So that's, So anyway, but that is to say, like, this is the show that this is also the show that introduced me to the idea of somebody else being Robin. Like, this show opened a lot of doors for me as a young person who didn't grow up reading comics at the time. The idea of Dick Grayson getting older, becoming a different superhero, not getting along with Batman, somebody else being Robin being an actual child my age. This show really opened a lot of doors for me not realizing at that time that this was stuff that already been going on in the comics or was new. Like, I didn't realize at the time, because I was too young, I couldn't, just how on the cusp of like comic books changing I was. I got into comics right when everything changed. And so I couldn't appreciate at the time the changes everything was going through. To me, that's just how comics were.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That makes
so
sense.
it's I grew up at a weird time. You know what I mean? Like, it's
a great time.
I've always said I was born at the best worst time. Like, it really, it's like I can never tell, because like, even when you look at what I do for a living, I didn't really figure out this is what I wanted to do until I was well into my 30s. So like, it's hard to say. But anyway, that is to say, the new Batman Adventures did that for me. So I assume it did it for a lot of people my age. So whether you, and then the animation goes through another redesign when you get into like Justice League and Justice League Unlimited and all that, which we're not going to talk about on this. We're doing with the Batman ones. We've talked about both of those shows. We've given whole episodes to both of those shows. We did rankings. Go listen to those. But yeah, I mean, this show plus Superman are also the jumping off point for Justice League and Justice League, like what people now remember. Nostalgia.
Outside of Batman, none of these characters ever show up again.
Oh, not other than Joker. But even that Joker gets because Joker's the one that gets a redesign for this show and then gets
undesigned.
They all get a third redesign. Anybody who reappears in Justice League or Justice League Unlimited gets a third redesign. Because while I do like the designs of this show, there's no hard outlines anywhere, so shit kind of bleeds into each other sometimes. It's a lot of black bleeding into black. It's a lot of black and gray bleeding into black and gray. And in 3, 2, One other thing I do want to bring up that's so great about this show is like the previous one introduced Harley Quinn. This is the show that gives us her origin.
Oh yeah.
And just what a, I mean, we lost Arlene Sorkin last year, not long after Mark Hamill, or not Mark Hamill, Kevin
Conroy.
God, Jesus, don't put that out in the universe, Mike.
Come on now, come on, don't do that.
Don't do that. And we lost several people from the show in the last year, so getting to have both of these shows, and then now again, we talked about it last week, but knowing now that Paul Dini's coming back with Batman Cape Crusader, and they're going into what we've now heard since last week is their original idea for Harley Quinn. This is what their original idea for Harley that we're getting in the Cape Crusader was their original take. What we got was like the second pass. Basically it was like after the studio came back with notes is basically. Now what we got is clearly the history writes itself. But it'll be interesting to see what they were originally going for, to see if we receive it as well now that we've had 30 plus years of Harley Quinn. All right, so that gets us into the next chapter in this universe's story, which is my personal favorite, Batman Beyond. We're not ranking them, but this one's number one.
You skipped.
What did I skip?
You skipped the Batman from 2003.
We're not there yet. This is before the Batman.
No, the Batman's first.
Batman Beyond is in 1999.
Oh, I'm sorry. Batman Beyond. My bad. I thought you said Batman Brave the Bold. I'm sorry. I'm just like, what are we doing?
No, Batman Beyond, buddy. Batman Beyond.
Actually, I think Batman Beyond Batman Beyond is when?
99 to 2001. I'm on the IMDb page as we go through these.
Okay. So, well, because I kept trying to think.
I opened them up in chronological order.
Yeah. Okay. Never mind. I'm done.
Yeah. So my personal favorite, Batman Beyond, Blade Runner Batman it's truly a gift to mankind. This is the one I was alluding to earlier when I talked about not giving the villains enough of a chance, because I do think Batman Beyond is great conceptually, but the villains is where this show did make the most missteps. Half the villains are just retreads of other Batman villains we've already had, like their take on the Royal Flush Gang was one that already existed in the comics. It was just, or like Spellbinder. Oh, we didn't use him in Batman yet. So, but I will say the original villains they gave him, like Ink and Blight, were incredible. Yeah. And the one episode we get with Mr. Freeze is also incredible. The problem is with all of the villains on this show is the show only lasts 2 years. There is not a single villain that gets more than 3 episodes. Not even Blight. And Blight's the one that was supposed to be like his Joker, even the Jokers themselves only get really they take such a back seat in this show. It's really the only misstep of the show is there's just not enough really given to the rogues gallery aspect of Batman, but the world they give us with this show is incredible. It also gives us Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which we've talked about ad nauseum on this show. It's the one that's got the super dark director's cut where you see Joker take a flagpole to the chest.
Yeah, I think this is the show that I could not get into, and I think I like the Return of the Joker movie. Yeah. I want to say I've watched like 10 or 15 episodes, if that. Like I've tried a couple times to go back to it. It does that thing. I've said this before. I'm going to say it real quick. It does that thing of like Batman and Batgirl getting together is gross and weird on all kinds of different levels.
Well, they're continuing with their own continuity, so they had to keep it. And I agree. That's more of a fault of the previous show than this one. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
But
I mean, and then there's also a time of like, I don't know. Batman's Bruce Wayne. Yeah. So when it's not Bruce Wayne, I'm always kind of like, meh. But I mean, at the same time, visually it was cool. I just didn't I like low-tech Batman.
Yeah.
So Iron Man Batman kind of threw me, but at the same time, I really keep trying to tell myself, let's give this show a shot. People have said really good
Yeah.
things about it. I just have never taken the time to do that.
I think Iron Man Batman works in the world they've given him. They've given him a world where Batman has had to adapt. And if one thing Batman does is he adapts.
Yeah.
So but again, yeah, we've talked about this show. We did like 3 episodes in a row pitching movies about it. So the next one we'll go to then is The Batman 2004 to 2008. And this is the first this is the first animated series we get that's not set in the Bruce Timm, Paul Dini stuff.
Yeah.
This is the first one that's like a real original take on these characters. I mean, you talk about redesigns. The take they did on the Joker with this is still weirdly one of my favorites, and I don't have an explanation for why. It's just so bizarre. It's I like this show a lot. You love this show. So I got to gush about Batman Beyond. I'll let you gush about this for a sec.
Dude, Jeff Matsuda was one of these comic book artists that I always liked his designs, but he, a lot of the artists from the 90s, like they don't consistently work. Just things happen. It's a weird era. You can get super popular with 2 comics, and he does some amazing redesigns, because I think the thing, like we previous said, is like all those Batman cartoons from like the 70s on through the mid 80s. Like when you look at a screenshot of it, you have no idea what it's from. When you see a screenshot of this cartoon, you know what it's from. And it's very manga inspired. All the villains become physical threats for Batman as well, because before, and even nowadays sometimes, it's like once Batman gets through whatever plan they have, he knocks him out with one punch. Like there's not a big physical altercation. In this one, you have Penguin and Batman manga fighting, jumping through trees. And it's really odd, but also like, you know what? That's what the show is. I'm here for it.
Joker's a weird monkey.
He's like
he's like a gorilla. Like
he's a capoeira guy. That's what it is.
Yeah. It's very like
Rasta.
Like it's weird. And I'm blanking all of a sudden on who voices him, but he does such a good job. Kevin Michael Richardson.
Yeah, does every show.
And Kevin Michael Richardson is one of my absolute, it's one of those, like, I never totally recognize him, but then once I look it up, I'm like, of course it is. The way he goes from silly to downright scary with Joker is, it is upsetting sometimes how creepy his voice gets when he gets into like that when I've been coughing a lot, where suddenly he's just down talking like this, and it's like, oh, Joker's not supposed to sound like that. I'm scared.
Well, and it's also one of those guys who he'd been voicing tons of cartoons before then. He would have never been on my list of somebody who would be Joker. No. And he does a fantastic job. But no, I think all the designs are really cool. I really like the Robin costume in this show. I think it's really slick looking.
Yeah, and we've talked about this at one point when we were talking about voice actors, because like this is the one where it's like there was some licensing issue. We talked about licensing issues earlier. There was some licensing issues with this and Teen Titans, where this was originally meant to be, or was pitched to be, like a spin-off of Teen Titans about that version's Batman, or vice versa. One of them was pitched to be a spin-off of the other, and because Cartoon Network, WB, something wasn't jiving, and then
basically they could not use Robin in the Batman until Teen Titans was off the air.
That's why they changed the origin a bit to where
Batgirl shows up first.
Yeah. It's also kind of a contemporary to Robin in this
Batgirl?
one. Or no, she's a full-blown teenager.
She's a teenager. He's like a preteen, but they do become more, because this is when
she's definitely pitched as younger than she usually is when we meet Batgirl. Usually by the time we meet Batgirl, she's an adult.
She's college.
This is the youngest Batgirl I think has ever been portrayed. Because even in even in Harley Quinn, she's like a sophomore, junior in college.
See, and this is what makes me wonder. Like, I really wonder because remember, like Teen Titans was still going strong, and they ended on a fifth season. I'm really wondering if they put Batgirl in here thinking they'd never get Robin, and then Teen Titans suddenly gone, and they're like, pull Batman in, like pull Robin in,
I don't know.
because
It's
she's
not.
that Robin age.
Yeah, and we've looked. I know you and I specifically have looked into it. It's not the same animation studio as Teen Titans, but holy crap, is it similar? Because
Yeah.
once they do put Robin in here, like it really doesn't look that much different from
It's like Teen
from
Titans is
yeah,
definitely all the manga, like a
yeah.
manga-ish.
But
And then
from like a costume design standpoint, it's like okay, we we know who you're appealing to. We get it.
well, and it's funny too because this is the Jason Todd costume
Yeah.
is basically what both of these costumes are based
Well,
on.
I think it's because everybody pretty
Not
much
Jason Todd, Tim
uh,
Drake, the
Tim
Tim
Drake.
Drake costume.
I think it's because everybody pretty much agreed once Teen Titans came, or once Jason Todd put pants on. I think everybody was like, "Oh yeah, no, that's a better look." Yeah, yeah,
Tim
yeah.
Drake with pants makes sense.
It's
We're
just
always going to
hey,
do
guys,
that.
from now on, Robin always wears pants. Can we all just be on board with that? We figured it out. We cracked the code. Robin always wears pants. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
So yeah,
Thank you.
it's a great show.
Yeah, it's
It's
fun. Even the last season, which is really just a glorified Justice League season, it's not bad. It's fun. It's fun seeing. It's fun spending a season with the Justice League of this universe because at this point, I think we've kind of earned it.
Yeah.
Honestly, I think that if you're looking for the true quintessential Saturday morning cartoon version of a serious Batman show, like yeah, if you wanted to make a serious Saturday morning cartoon, this is it.
yeah.
Because there's some genuinely great episodes of this show. Although they did
Indeed.
Mr. Freeze dirty. They did. All right, let's go into one that we both love, which is Batman Brave and the Bold.
Yes.
Diedrich Bader led. Truly a show I did not anticipate loving as much as I did. It was because of you and me doing this show that I finally sat down and
I was going to
watched
say,
it.
yeah.
And it like skyrocketed so high, especially the Music Meister episode. Got the soundtrack immediately. Want to see it done live. Yeah, this show slaps, dude.
It's and I
It's
think
so
what well, and I think too is like when you see the promo art
Yeah.
and you see some of the stuff, you're like, oh, we're going back to a kid's show.
I rolled my eyes so hard the first time I saw
Yeah.
like a commercial for this, and I was like, I will not be watching.
Well, and see, that's the same thing. Is like I think what brings me to this show is the Music Meister episode. Is I think we were looking up Doctor Horrible and talking about it, and I looked up Neil Patrick Harris, and I was like, he was in Batman Brave and the Bold. What was that? Why?
Yeah.
And then I went and watched the
Why?
episode, and I was like, huh, what is this show? I need to check it. Well, no, what it is the site I went to watch the episode, it wasn't the right episode. So I watched like this random episode, and it was like, hey, this is actually pretty good. And then I went back and got the DVDs and watched the whole series, and I was like, wow, this is actually really, really good.
You know what I think the problem is? Because so this is 2008 to 2011. Star Wars Rebels is 2014 when it comes out. I think that the problem that both because I think Star Wars Rebels had the same problem of this show. It was both shows were marketed very poorly. I think both Star Wars Rebels and Batman Brave and the Bold were marketed solely as feed your kid sugary cereal, sit them in front of a TV, and they will shut up for 30 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, when they actually had quite a bit of care and depth to them, and like they were kind of like what people talk about nowadays with like Bluey. It's like it's just as much for the parents as it is for the kids.
Yeah.
And I feel like because we had spent decades marketing most of this stuff to an older audience, I think they kind of didn't really know how to market this to kids. They weren't sure how to market it to kids. They weren't sure how to market. This is in that era where just the nerd stuff hadn't figured out marketing for younger audiences yet. They were like, we either know how to market to adults or children, and they hadn't figured out how to appeal to both yet. You know what I mean?
Well, and I think too, like this is also that thing of Teen Titans, very kid oriented. The Batman, very kid oriented. So I
Yeah.
think what happens is you've got the stigmatism on the Batman cartoons that they're kid oriented.
Well, right, but my point is Teen Titans was kid oriented, but was never meant to be anything but that.
Correct.
Batman
But
Brave and the Bold and Star Wars Rebels were both very much kid friendly, but were also appealing to like leaving stuff in there for the older audience to enjoy.
correct.
Teen
But you
Titans
have
was
to watch it to know that. And I think
right.
that's what happens
And,
is
and that's my point is they didn't do a good job marketing what the show was going to be. They
yeah,
only marketed it either show, this one in particular, Batman Brave and the Bold, because it was earlier. They only marketed this show from a good for kids standpoint.
yeah.
So there was no reason for it. I think if they had found a way to crack the code on how to market this show and Star Wars Rebels, the viewership on both shows would have been monumentally higher. So you would have gotten more than just 3 years out of this show,
I
or at
think
least would have gotten more viewership for those 3 seasons.
yeah.
You know,
But
because
but
the people who have watched it love it, but it's amazing how many people I talk to who are Batman fans that haven't. And I was one of them who have not watched this show because we're like, it's a kid show.
yeah. And it's not. Holy mackerel.
Kids can watch it, but man, does it get deep.
Yeah, there's like 6 or 7 episodes. I'm like, that was
I mean, we
holy.
all know the Phantom Stranger Spectre episode goes hard.
Yeah, that one too. All right,
Um,
so what's the next one?
well, the next
Do we
one,
want to just skip it?
the next one, the last one. This is the most recent Batman animated series that has been released as of this recording up until Cape Crusader comes out later this summer. Beware the Batman, which ran for I think half of one season, maybe one full season, 2013 to 2014 on Cartoon Network. It's an all CGI show. It is an unwatchable, unmitigated mess of I don't know who this is for. I don't I want to see firsthand. I want to be the fly on the wall for all of the meetings surrounding this show and how it got made.
Yeah,
Because woof. Every choice made in this show is the wrong choice.
that is correct.
Yeah. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to that, Matthew?
I mean, this is one of those, in my opinion, that like I think they try to do it so different that it goes into like you swung for the fences and didn't even get a bunt. Like I get you want to make the idea of Alfred being Batman's contemporary instead of the old doddering version we traditionally get, I think is interesting, but not what it should be.
I've never been sold on him being his contemporary so much as just I don't know. I think it just I think it just lends itself to how poorly the show is animated and acted.
Well,
Is
and yeah,
I feel like it was meant to be your typical Alfred's older and raised him, but I just think they got I think the voice actor portrays him too young. I think the animation makes him look too young. I think
yeah,
he's written far too like I know because this comes out, you know, in the time of like Gotham when people liked kind of a scruffier, not scruffier, but scrappier Alfred. And I like a scrappy Alfred, don't get me wrong. I don't need this is the equivalent of casting Marissa Tomei as Aunt May. You know what I mean? It's like
yeah,
unless you're aging down Batman like they did for Peter Parker, you know,
yeah.
it's just yeah, it's and I also don't Batman doesn't need a bodyguard. What the Batman doesn't need a bodyguard. Why there's no the only reason Shiva's in this show
Katana.
or Katana rather. I always get those two every time. Because what's the difference? The only reason Katana's in this show is because Alfred injures himself and he's like, and you need help.
Yeah,
No, he doesn't. That's the whole point.
exactly.
I don't want to watch a show where Batman needs an assistant. You know what I mean? The whole point of Robin isn't that Batman needs Robin. It's that Batman and Robin need each other. Katana's just there to be Batman's bodyguard, and I'm not here for any of that.
It's like the sad thing is, I don't think I got 5 or 6 episodes into the show.
I
Like
got one episode in. I
I
think maybe two, maybe two.
yeah, it
I
just
got oh
it's just not.
because this comes out around the same time as Arkham Origins, the video game does, and they made this suit DLC, and I'm pretty sure none of us used it.
It looks
None
like
of us used
Toothless from How to Train Your
It
Dragon. That's
looks,
what he looks like.
you know what it looks like? It looks like someone's AI rendering of what Val Kilmer's suit would look like in see an animation.
I don't know.
Badly.
It's
Like it
just
looks like an exaggerated bad animation of Val Kilmer's Panther suit.
yeah. I can see
And
that.
that's not a dig at the Val Kilmer suit. That's a dig at how poorly the show's animated.
No,
It's
it's
just bad.
just it's again, I think it's one of those let's do something completely different. It just doesn't track. It
Yeah.
doesn't attach. Like,
Yeah.
look, in the history of Batman cartoons, none of them have ever been a one season, except this one.
This is the only one. Well, those 60s, 70s ones only ran for one season, but they ran on syndication for like
Well, they
and
also
also crossed over in like a billion other shows, so it
yeah,
really
yeah.
didn't matter.
So when you
But,
talk about
yeah.
the last 6 versions of this show,
It's the only one that gets one season.
yeah,
But
everyone get 3 or 5.
it's also again the show goes off the air in 2014. And it's now 2024 until we're getting a new one.
Well, and I think you had a lot of movies that were really good. You had some weird movies
Yeah.
that weren't very good.
This is kind of I will say 2014 because this goes off the air and then Gotham is still on the air for a few more years for somehow. I don't know how Gotham stayed on the air as long. It should it's anyway. But pretty much with this show and Gotham are the death of Batman on TV
For a long time.
for a long time. The closest we get is whatever the fuck that was in Titans. And do not get me started on Gotham Knights.
No, we're not gonna bring it up.
But as far as just Batman on TV, this and Gotham are the end of it.
Yeah.
And from then on in, Batman is in movies only or in crappy streaming cameos. Until now, we're getting, like I said, we're not far away from when Batman Cape Crusader drops on Amazon Prime. I believe it August 1st?
August 1st.
Yeah, August 1st on Amazon Prime. That's really not that far away. It's like 6 weeks. It'll be here before you know it. It's dropping at the same, like halfway through the new seasons of everything else that's dropping on streaming. So I'm hoping this is the first of many more Batman TV shows. And not just like the Penguin, Batman TV shows.
Yeah.
I want to see Batman on TV again. I don't want to have to wait 5 years to see Batman on screen again, live action. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or in animation period, like in anything. I'm tired of I love Batman and I'm tired of having to wait so long between Batman things.
Well, and I think what you probably have is Batman or Warner Brothers Animation starts leaning into those DVDs. And they're assuming people want to watch these DVDs instead of a show. And we don't because the DVDs have been horrible as of late.
They're okay. They start strong. But they don't last.
No.
So yeah, so here's hoping with Batman Cape Crusader. I'm hoping it's a huge hit. I'm hoping it gets many seasons. I hope it's the first of many animated Batman shows we get. Maybe when Batman makes his appearance in the DCU, James Gunn can play with the idea of, again, make an animated Batman series set in the DCU. I'll watch it. I will watch it at midnight, 3 a.m. when it drops on Max. I'll wait up all night. I'll watch it. So, but hey, listen, that's the history of Batman and animated television. Please let us know which one is your favorite. Which one were you one of the people that actually watched Beware the Batman? Were you one of the people that kept Gotham on the air? You should answer for your crimes. Let us know if you're watching us on YouTube. Let us know down in the comments. If you're listening to us on audio, please rating, leave us a rating, leave us a review wherever you're at. It goes a long way. Make sure you guys always you can follow this show on social media on Facebook and Instagram at WATV Pod. It's terrible URL, but that's what we got. You can find me on social media at Mr. Mike Shag.
You can find me on Twitter at Mr. J Ninja.
That is going to do it for this week's episode of We Are the Batman. We'll see you again next time. Same bad time, same bad podcast channel.
Bye-bye.